Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I'm making a start on a corner television unit. See you in a minute. Now, one of my fellow shedders came to me the other day wanting to know if I could put together for him a corner unit to sit a television on. Normally these things have like a stereo or a DVD recorder or whatever underneath. In this instance I think it's got a small space for the dog, but similar principle. It's a triangular piece that will go into the corner of a room. I want to try and do it in a decent timber. We've got an awful lot of sapele mahogany lying around at the shed, and I've got some at home as well, so I'm going to have a look around and see what we can come up with and make a start on getting the top made anyway, and see what else we can pick up along the way. Now, underneath the chaos which is the garage at the moment, I happen to know there are some pieces of mahogany sapele lurking. There are three lumps under there, about 1.5 inches thick. The only downside is that they came out of a bookcase that someone was throwing out. Beautiful timber, but there are mortises in the widest one, which are where the bookshelves used to go in. So I may have to thin it all down, but I need the width, I think, to make up the two pieces I need. I've got to go for the widest one that's there, but it is lovely timber and it's something I won't be using, so I'm not a great fan of red wood anymore. It's a sort of 70s thing to me, but this is what he wants, so we'll dig all this out and get the pieces out and get them up to the shed, and I think I'll run them through the planer first up at the shed and get that 1/2 inch or so. There's probably 15 or 20 mil got to come off. No, 15 I would guess at most, to get the rebate out of it and get it to being flat timber. Now, I've got the sapele mahogany from the garage. I'm going to cut them rough sizes of the pieces that I need, rather than trying to put the whole thing through the big planer at Menin Sheds. I'm going to cut it just slightly oversized, and then I've got 2 pieces I can use to do it. It's got to go through the planer because of these rebates in the back, which have meant that it's not really suitable for a top as it is, but I've still got 30 mil of timber there, so I'm just going to take this thickness off it. So that's the rough shape that I need. First thing to do is to properly joint those 2 faces so that they'll meet together nicely. Then we'll run the whole thing through the planer in its 2 component parts, and I can put a routed groove down both of these pieces and put a spline in the middle and glue it all up as one tabletop. But hopefully that should then be a suitable tabletop for this unit. And we can start and worry about the framework to support it. It's pretty heavy, but we have, as I say, got to take 7 or 8 mil off it first, so that it's down to about 30 mil. Now the other thing we found in the bin down at the men's shed was some stuff that would probably not normally ever get used. Don't know where it's come from, but it's essentially a square section that's been ripped into quadrants. But of course with a corner unit this is going to prove ideal, I think, because we can make it fit the slope of the wall on the 45 degrees, and then that brings us to a square front across where we want it to, and again back on the other side it'll go on the angle of the wall. So that will work perfectly as my two uprights either side. We haven't got enough timber really to do the internal linings, so I'm going to go with a plywood stained up mahogany, I think, and possibly the bottom, but I'm going to at least put a plinth with a piece of mahogany on that. I've got some nice bits of fairly substantial stuff that we'll clean up, and that will hopefully make up front plinth that we can rest the floor on it on top of, and I may well take a skim off that so that we can lip the front edge of the shelves as well. So I think we've got all the components. Time to get it now sorted out for the actual top. I think we'll get that made up first and then glued up, so we'll get that prepared first. So I've got the top all prepared, rebaited out. I've cut myself a spline that's about 6mm just to stop any chance of movement between the two pieces, which I think is extremely unlikely. It's very old timber that's not likely to be moving anywhere, I don't think, but hopefully that will do us for that. I'm just going to now glue it all up and put some clamps on it, and that will give us the blank, if you like, for the top. It's not going to be properly sorted yet until we've got it. I've got to make a template roughly to what I think the finished size will be, so that the colleague can take it home with him and try it, just to make sure that his corner walls are at right angles, because it wouldn't be the first time that I've been caught out by houses that have walls that aren't at right angles. So we'll do that before we actually do the finished cuts on the edges, just to make sure it's all alright. We'll get this all glued up, then I'll be putting 2 clamps on the bottom, 1 on the top. That stops it. There's a natural tendency with anything being clamped to sort of come up in the middle if you're not careful. So I'm going to put 2 on the bottom and then 1 upside down on the top, and that should mean that we've got a decent compression. I'll just get this top clamp on, and as I say, that stops the tendency for it to come up in the middle. That's it, a nice bit of squeeze out all along. I think I'll just put 1 more clamp on that end to keep a little bit of slack in the rebate, so we'll try and keep that flush, just save a lot of work planing later on. There we are. Right, that's the top ready to dry off and get its final sanding down or planing. I don't think it'll need a lot of planing, but it might need a little bit of planing here and there just to get it back to decent finish. But as you can see, these timbers we've got should do ideally in the corners like that to frame the table up at the front, or the unit up at the front. That's got the top glued. Take those clamps off now. It's a bit very slight step in it there. It's fine there, that's good. Just had a quiet rub over that with a plane and a scraper, and it's come up nicely. Let's see what the other side looks like. Yeah, apart from a bit of glue squeeze out, so it's very much the same. It's fine at that end, a little bit more out there. I think it's just moved very slightly, but there's a couple of things I hadn't thought to do, which I probably should do now just to get this finished off. The front edge, I jointed that join between the two halves, but I haven't yet cut this down, just trim this front edge. It's a bit knocked about here and there, a little bit of discolouring along that front edge because it had faded, because it had been in the house for years. So I'm just going to whip the track saw along that front edge, tidy it up, and then I can put a couple of small rebates on it, just to angles on it, chamfers, so I can just tidy it all up, get it final sanding, and then it'll be completed, ready to go out on the actual finished job, I think. So we'll do that first. That's it, ready for a bit of finish. I think I might try a bit of oil on it first before I actually assemble it. I'm not sure yet, I'll think about that one. The only other thing I might do, but only when it's assembled, is to just take the corner off this front edge, just to cut that at right angles to the front, but I'm not going to do that until I do the uprights. I'll just take that nasty little sharp corner off and hopefully finish it off properly. I think they're there with the top. Well, that's got the top 99% of the way there. I've got all the parts I need, I think, and I also think I know how I'm going to put it together. So we're pretty much broken the back of this one, I think, but unfortunately this week I've run out of time, so it'll have to wait until a future episode to finish this one off. Hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different in the shed. See you then. Bye.